So once again, if you miss anything, any class, I upload all the videos, okay, on my YouTube channel. So you can find my YouTube channels and you can watch it. So you won't miss anything, okay? All right. So this time, we are going to talk about the second paper. We already talked about the first paper in the previous time, in the last meeting, right? So we talked about corporate venture capital and real option approaches, okay? This time we're going to talk about really different topics, but I believe this paper is much easier to read, okay, compared with the previous one, okay? So this paper is about our jobs, okay? So your jobs in the medical device industry, okay? So number of jobs. We are talking about jobs. Very important topic. Okay. So this paper. My co-authors are Edelman. Edelman is an MIT professor. Okay. He's teaching at MIT. And the other co-author is David Koo. He's teaching at the Georgia Tech. He's a Georgia Tech professor. So we will really enjoy to write this paper. Okay. Because the topic is very important, number of jobs, okay? So many people are interested in this topic. Also, actually, this paper is the second version of this area, this topic. The first version, our paper, the first version was published at the scientific journal, okay? So medical device industry journal, okay? Purely scientific one, not management one. Then it was a very simple paper. Then I thought, oh, there would be a better model for this topic. So I changed the model, I changed the empirics, and I found, oh, these results are very interesting. Okay, so we need to publish again. Then the first version and second version, and this version is published at Industry and Innovation, which is a reputational management journal, okay? So purely science and social science, okay? So this topic is, many people are interested in this from this field. So let's talk about that, the number of jobs. We want to talk about jobs. And we are going to talk about money, okay? Money is not always the same, okay? Money has some types. So public capital, public money, private money. So I just distinguish this, okay? Public capital and private capital. Public capital means something like research grants, okay? Federal research grants, federal money, okay? And private capital is, in this paper, I'm talking about venture capital, all right? Venture capital. So how these two types of money, public and private, all right, differently impact the number of jobs in the area, right? This is the central question of this paper. So we're going to talk about that, all right? We will talk about this. Okay, so I assume that you already read this paper, and you try to understand as much as you can, all right? And these questions, same questions with the previous ones. What is the story about? Please share the story with your team. So please increase the level of your understanding on this paper, okay? Probably this paper is much, much better than the previous ones, okay? And the second question is, discuss the paper in the concept of competitive advantage, reduce cost, and increase product differentiations. Same question, we talked about that already. Competitive advantage, reduce cost, increase product differentiations. Okay? So we will talk about these questions as a whole group. And the last one, very practical question. Step forward. If you are authorized to allocate the financial resources, this public private capital, you are the boss, then what are you going to do? Yep. What are you going to do? What would you do? Okay. So you will discuss these three questions with your teammates. Okay? Your teammates. So as I did before, okay, I'm gonna create breakout rooms for your discussions, your team discussions. You will join with your team and discuss these three questions. Okay. We share the paper, we share the story of the paper, and comparative advantage, reduce cost, increase product differentiation things, and your suggestions. Okay? All right. I'm gonna create. Oh, everyone's ready? So clear? So are you ready to go? Please say yes. Okay. Then I'm gonna create breakout rooms. We have 5 breakout rooms, and I'm gonna give you 15 minutes again. 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes. Then now breakout rooms are ready. So you please go ahead and meet with your teammates. Okay. Then we'll discuss these questions as a whole class afterwards. Please go ahead. I'm going to mute my microphone for your discussions. Okay? I'm going to mute. But if you have any question, comments, just let me know.
You are currently the only person in this conference. You are currently the only person in this conference.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Hey. All right, welcome back. Okay, great, great. Okay, all right. So 15-minute was okay? All right, great. Thank you, Cole. Okay, all right, great. So let's talk about the paper, okay? All right, so the first question. So you already discussed this. So what is the story about? Please share the story with your team. Anyone? Any team? Want to go first? Just a start, okay? Who want to go first? Who will start?
So we were talking about how this article was about venture capital and NIH funding and how it relates to the explorative and exploitative learning aspect, and how venture capital is more exploitative and NIH is more explorative.
Okay, so there's a difference, right? Adam, good point. Okay, so public capital and private capitals are different. Okay, the aims, okay, the objectives are different. Okay, federal funding is a little bit more basic science. Okay, basic science, and venture capital has focus on the applied science. So think about that. Venture capital, they have to make money. All right, they have to make money, capital gains. So they cannot wait for a long time. So they have to make money as soon as possible. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Okay? So they invest in applied science, which can make profit very quickly, right? But federal money is different. Okay? You can't wait. It invests in the basic science, okay, the long term. Okay, Adam, good point. Any other point? So you want to share? So how this differently impact the number of jobs? What is the story, the whole story of the paper? Okay, Lacey, go ahead.
The findings was that the NIH funding in the long term provides more jobs.
Okay, in the long term, NIH funding provides more jobs.
Yes.
And yes. And then there's a relationship between funding and intellectual capital. Actually, that is the central idea of this paper. How money and intellectual capitals are interrelated. How is it? Anyone in the paper? Capital and intellectual capital. The money and intellectual capital. Probably this is a central idea you should understand. To understand whole paper.
I think that the positive effects from NIH funding compared to venture capital is more. It said it was more salient for when it's talking about intellectual capital for the region. So I think that the effects are stronger.
Right, exactly. That is the core idea of this paper. You should understand this. Okay. So in this paper, I found that okay, NIH funding, venture capital funding creates new jobs. It's good. This is good. Then what other factors impact this relationship? Okay. Then based on the data, I found that, okay, if there's a high intellectual capital in that region, okay, and this relationship, this positive relationship, is stronger. Okay, so this is the central findings of this paper. In the previous version, there's no finding on this interaction effect. We say this is interaction effects. Okay? So money, capital, and intellectual capital, knowledge, interactive with each other to create more jobs. Okay, so you need to invest in money, and also you need to invest in intellectual capital to maximize these effects. So we say this is an interaction effects of money and intellectual capital on the jobs. Okay, all right. So this is pretty much about the paper. So private capital and public capital, we talked about that. Venture capital, NIH funding. Okay. So venture capital is private financial institution. They need a capital gains. But NIH funding is a government. So they have different objectives. Okay. So you don't have a problem, I guess. So motivation of this study is very simple. How these two types of capital, venture capital and research grants, impact, how this impacts regional improvement. Also, what contextual factors alter these relationships? Okay. Specifically, we are talking about intellectual capital in this study. Okay. This is a conventional approach. That means many people just use this model. Okay. And number of jobs, and money, labor, and intellectual capital, and entrepreneurial capital. Okay? So many economists just assume that these different types of capital work independently. Okay? They work separately. But in my perspective, my approach, I just put this in it. K and R are interactive. That means money and intellectual capitals are interactive to increase number of jobs, to create jobs. Okay, so this is only newness in this model. I just use this, okay, in my mind. Then all the following things are just start from this. Okay, very simple idea. Okay, but actually the implications are much stronger. Okay. This is model. So VC funding, NIH funding, they are different. Okay. And they both impact regional job creations. Okay. But intellectual capital interact with this. Okay. This is model. And then hypothesis. So exactly, we talked about this. Venture capital increase number of jobs. NIH funding increase number of jobs. And this positive relationship, okay, is a stronger, okay, where a great amount of intellectual capital is available. Okay, Tritney clarified this already. And this positive relationship is stronger when intellectual capital is available in the region. Okay, so very simple ideas, but strong implications. Thank you, Tritney, to point out this. Okay, and again, empirics. Okay, the last time we talked about regression table, right? Do you remember that? Okay, so we are going to talk about regression again. Okay, so regression is the most widely used technology actually to test hypotheses. So some data source, we focus on medical device industry. Okay? And we have data here. Based on this data, okay, we have variables. So now you have a better sense about dependent variable and independent variables, because this is the second time, right? So dependent variable, impacted variable. So at this time, in this context, dependent variable is what? Number of jobs, yes. Okay. Number of jobs. So number of jobs are impacted by independent variables. So in this study, independent variables are money, right? BC and NIH money, and also intellectual capital. So independent variables impact dependent variable, right? So independent variables in this paper, money and intellectual capital. Dependent variable is impacted variable, so number of jobs. Clear? Okay. And some control variables. There is some more advanced techniques, something like instrumental variables, but at this point you don't need to. Okay, focus on this advanced techniques because it's just confused. Okay, it's not focus on this class. All right, so we clarified dependent variable and independent variables. Okay? So descriptive statistics. So again, we have tables. So if you understand this table, okay, then you understand all the paper, actually. Okay? And if you understand this table, you can apply this understanding in other contexts, other papers. Okay? So in your job, if you have regression tables, okay, you just find some elements, okay, as I point out, then you can understand it, okay. So now, look at the table. These are mothers, okay, each mother, right, this is mother, and each mother, these mothers are independent, okay, so mother 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, whatever mothers, you can have it, okay, so mother 1 and 2, just say model 1 has some variables, independent variables. Model 2 has more independent variables. Okay? It's totally up to you. Okay? Then dependent variable, look at this model 2 because model 2 has all the independent variables. So model 2, we focus on model 2. Okay? Dependent variable is level of employment, so number of jobs. T means in that year. T is year, in that year. All right. So all of this, VC funding, NIH funding, invest in T this year. Yeah. And model 3, only difference is same thing, but T plus 1. So number of jobs and T plus 1, the next year. So you invest money, intellectual capital, then the next year number of jobs. Okay, something like that. T2, T3, T4. So these models are looking at the lag effects of investments. Lag effects. Okay, so far so good. Lacey, you all right? Okay, and my independent variables are VC funding, NIH funding, and intellectual variables. Now, intellectual capital and some interaction variables. Okay, so VC funding has positive, okay, positive and significant. 3 stars means very significant. Okay? So it's a notation. Okay? Significant regression coefficient on regional improvement T. So positive relationship between VC funding and level of employment at T in that year. In model 3, it has a positive and significant regression coefficient 2 and T plus 1. So VC funding can impact T and also T plus 1. So far so good? Okay. Then it goes to T plus 2, T plus 3. So it impacts actually several years. VC funding impacts several years. VC funding impact level of employment for several years after VC funding was invested. Okay, and this table shows something like that. NIH funding too, positive significant, positive significant. All right, these are simple correlations, simple relationship. So these are about hypotheses 1 and 2. You got it? Okay, then we move to intellectual capital and interaction variables. So I include intellectual capital, and these are the multiplication is interaction variables. VC funding, intellectual capital, interaction variable 1, NIH and intellectual capital. Multiply both variables, and these are interaction variables, another interaction variables. Okay. I'm not going to talk about interaction variables again because actually you should learn these interaction variables in your statistics class. Okay. All right. I'm not going to replicate the interaction variables, but if interaction variables is significant, then there is a relationship between these two variables. Okay. So I just emphasized that. So intellectual capital is also positive and significant for several years. And interaction variables, VC funding and intellectual capital, positive, significant. And these interaction variables are positive, significant. This positive, significant regression coefficients means interaction variable works. Interaction variable works. That means if there is a high intellectual capital, all right, the relationship between VC funding and level of employment stronger. Salient. This is a positive interaction effects. Got it? You can understand in a different way. Intellectual capital has a positive significant impact on regional employment. So if there is a high VC funding in the region, the relationship between intellectual capital and regional jobs are stronger. This is how the interaction variable is interpreted. You with me, Tritney? Okay. Olivia, you okay? All right, Maggie, you okay? Lacey, question? Okay, Cole. All right. So this is how to read the regression tables. Okay. So simply this shows the hypothesis 1 and 2, and this is interaction variables. Okay. I cannot explain the interaction variables. I cannot remind you about the interaction variables at this time. We don't have enough time. Okay? But you need to revisit your statistics class if you want to clarify. Okay? All right. And there are some other techniques to clarify, all right, these numbers, but you don't need to. You don't need to know that. So you just understand this, okay? Just basic regression tables. The purpose I introduce this is in your future job. I want you to understand, okay, what you're talking about with your regressions in your report. That's why I just briefly introduce, okay, this stuff. Okay, so far so good. Can I move? Okay, great. All right, so based on my findings, strategists should consider appropriate typology of financial capital methods. Okay, so think about that. Private, public capital, they have different objectives, but people, just economists, strategists, policymakers, actually they didn't consider this difference before. So look, so I just say, look, you know, money is not the same money. Okay? Each money has different color. Each money has its own objectives. So you should consider to maximize the effect of policy, your investment. It is very, makes sense, right? So I'm talking about very simple things, not complicated things. Okay? Then also there is interaction effects of financial capital and intellectual capital. So if you just invest your money in the region, okay, you can increase number of jobs a little bit, okay, but there are some contextual factors to boost this impact. So what is that? It's the intellectual capital. Knowledge is very important. So you invest in money in the region, and where the knowledge is plentiful, so rich, then probably your investment will be much more better performed. That's what I'm saying in this paper. Right? Okay, great. Better? Now you have a better understanding about the paper? Okay, great. Then, so let's talk about the second question. Okay? So what? Discuss the paper in the concept of competitive advantage. Reduce cost, increase product differentiations. Okay? Anyone? Please tell us your perspective, ideas, whatever. This is a very open questions. So your team discussions or your personal ideas, perspectives, anything is welcome. Please go ahead. Anyone want to go first?
It makes sense to me that if you are investing in intellectual capital, then that's going to give your company a competitive advantage because you have better talent and more knowledge in your region.
Okay, all right. So, do you think you focus on intellectual capital, right? All right. For what? Your company or for community or for government, for people? What? Really more specific.
Well, I think all of them are important, but particularly your company and who you're hiring from the community.
Okay.
The community as a whole could affect it too.
All right. Okay. So intellectual capital is very important. Okay? So think about that. This study focused on the relationship between interaction effects, money and intellectual capital, right? Money and intellectual capital. So without either one of these, actually the effect of this element, this factor, which will be limited. Okay? So that's why Tritin says intellectual capital is very important. Okay, great. Okay, other points. Any other comment?
One point that I thought was interesting in relation to like employment and how NIH and the difference between NIH and capital venture with employment. One thing about capital venture, it talked about that it can sometimes decrease employment because the startup company that they invest in could potentially put some of its competition out of business and decrease employment because they did have like a competitive advantage with maybe just being more efficient in what they produce or having a better product.
Mm-hmm. Nice point. Great point. This is crowd effects. This is crowd effects. So Morgan says, okay, if the venture capital is pretty working well, okay, that means new startups, new companies invest by venture capitalists work very well. Okay? How about the old companies, existing companies? If new companies are working very well, the existing companies not good, right? So they just destroyed, and number of jobs decrease. So there's some between trade-offs between these two companies. That's why we find a smaller impact of venture capital on the number of jobs compared with the effect of the NIH funding. So NIH funding is just new money, all right? It doesn't create competition, but actually with money create competition. Okay. All right. Okay. So good point. Then, okay. Any other comment? This is very interesting discussion. Please go ahead.
I'm looking at the chart, and it says that VC funding really helps with the formation of new entities, while NIH funding really focuses on the existing entities. So you could say, unless the VC funding is stretched too thin, that VC funding could increase your product differentiation because it's looking into new entities, and they would probably have different products, all of them. So maybe you could use that if you wanted to increase your product differentiation.
Great comments. Great. Cool. Thank you so much. Okay. So we need to think about this framework. Okay. VC funding and NIH funding. You say reduce costs? Yes. And increase product differentiations? Yes. Both actually increase product differentiations, but different ways. In different ways. So for example, product differentiations. Okay. Product differentiations. Okay. VC funding can increase product differentiations in the short term, right? In the short term. NIH funding in the long term, it increase product differentiations. Okay. Also, it reduce cost too. All right. VC funding, think about that. Okay. Crowd effects, trade-offs between existing companies and new companies. New companies is working very well. They are very competitive. Then, certainly, inefficient organization should be discarded. Okay? So it reduces cost as a community perspective. Okay? If it reduce cost, okay, these fundings, and increase product differentiations, then achieve competitive advantage. This region is doing better than others. That's the perspective. That's the perspective I have in this paper. Okay? So, good. Optimized investment in money and intellectual capital actually reduce cost, increase product differentiation in that region, that means this region has better performance, which is more jobs. Okay? So I'm talking about this framework, very simple framework. Okay? Reduce cost, increase product differentiations. Okay? If you have this gap increased, then you have competitive advantage. This is a central, this is a fundamental framework we will talk about again and again and again throughout the semester, because this is the fundamental framework of strategic management. Okay? Reduce cost, increase product differentiations. If you have this gap, you have competitive advantage. You are doing better than others. All right. So why we are talking about some environments? Because I want to have competitive advantage. Why we are talking about the formulation of a strategy? I want to have competitive advantage. Why I am talking about the implementation of a strategy? I want to have competitive advantage. Okay. So we'll talk about this in details a little bit, again and again, again. Clear? Okay. Any question before moving? Any other comments on the second question? All right, let's talk about the last one. If you are authorized to allocate the financial resource, so you are the boss, you have all the money, then you want to invest it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Please tell us.
I think it's smart, generally, to think long term whenever you think investments. NIH funding would probably be the way to go. But depending on where your cash position is, you might need to do some VC funding if you needed benefits in the short term. But I think ultimately your goal should be to invest heavily with the NIH funding.
All right, great. So Cole is talking about the timing issues. If you want to take care of that region in the long term, you should go with NIH funding first, because it takes time. It's a basic science. It takes time to, a flowering, all right, to have a, fruitful, performance. Then in the short term, you focus on the VC funding, all right. But you need also, don't forget the intellectual capital, all right. In that region, intellectual capital should be grounded. Okay. So that's why. Think about that. That's why many venture capitalists, and also many government funding goes to the region where intellectual capital is very rich. For example, Boston, biotechnology in Boston. Think about that. Okay. So many corporations over there, they create a lot of knowledge, a lot of patents. And also there are some, good schools, right? Universities, research institutions, like Harvard, MIT, or something like that. Okay? They create a lot of knowledge, okay, in that region. Then money, venture capitalists go there, and federal money go there and create a lot of jobs. Atlanta too. Okay. So think about it. Just compare with Boston and Atlanta. Okay. Atlanta has a lot of facilities, many fundamentals, okay, to create knowledge. Okay. Georgia Tech, Emory Research Universities, and CDC, and some companies. Okay. But okay, VC money is not rich, like a Boston. Okay? And federal money, probably federal money, is comparable, but VC money is very limited in the venture capital, in the Atlanta. Okay, so that's why some VCs, some venture capitalists say, "Oh, Atlanta has a lot of opportunities. Okay, we need to see this area as a new opportunity, something like that." Okay? So it becomes competing each other. Okay? It is very interesting situation right now. So I don't know how this will go, okay, in the future, but it starts the competitions. Okay, great. The timing issue very important. Okay. What else? So what else? What other points? Any other points? So no more point? No more comments? All right. Probably you didn't have enough time to discuss this question with your team. All right. So there are some more. Okay, suggestions. Okay, but it's so your discussion is up to now. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Anything else you want to comment? All right, great, good discussions. So at this point, I believe that your level of understanding about this paper is increased, improved a lot. Okay, then your discussions were great, so nice. Okay, I love what you discussed with your team and as a whole group. Great. So I want to have these discussions, these kind of discussions, and throughout the semester. Okay, this is how we have our class. Very, conversations, very casual. All right. All right. So if you don't have any other comment on the paper, okay. I want to emphasize this. In the next week, on Monday, we are going to start a new chapter, right? Chapter 1. Okay? So chapter 1. So for chapter 1, you're supposed to read the chapter 1 in advance. Okay? I'm not going to replicate. I'm not going to review, the chapter, the textbook. Okay? We don't need to, actually. We don't need to waste our time. Okay? So you read the chapter in advance. You are supposed to submit, your chapter case. Okay? So you can submit your chapter case on Canvas. Okay? So please make sure you are able to submit it. Okay? I already set up, the Canvas. Okay? So you can submit your chapter case. You can find that under assignment, I guess, under assignments. Okay? You can upload your file. Yeah. And then during the class, at the beginning of the class, we want to start with one keys. Okay, one keys. Okay, true or false questions. Okay. So your job is read the chapter in advance, submit your chapter case before the class. Okay, due is before the class, and we are start a new chapter on Monday. Okay. The second thing I want to emphasize is capstone simulation. All right. This is not an easy game. Okay. This is not an easy game. It takes time to be familiar with that. Okay. All right. This is not a randomly determine your performance game. Okay. It's not. There's very obvious and clear things you learn from these simulations. Okay. So that means you need to be familiar with this game, and you need to understand the mechanisms of this game. You have better information. We talked about the real option perspective. You have better information, your performance will be better. Same thing in this simulation. Okay? this simulation provides a lot of information, okay, especially in the manual. And if you have a better information, the performance you have better. Okay, so please start the simulation as soon as possible, as soon as you can. Okay, then your performance will be better. Okay. Any other question, comment, concern, whatever?
Yes, Dr. Kang, I had a question. As far as the simulation, which one on the website do we get? There's like 4 different options for the simulations.
4 different options. I'm not sure what those options are.
It looked like they were for different types of classes, or they were just a little bit different.
Okay, simply, as long as I know, you can register the simulation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then you can find my course.
All right, I'll do that. Yes, sir.
Okay, you can find my course. You can find with my name, or course name, whatever. Also, I can I can let you know for the program next time the industry code. Okay? Then you can find with that one too. Okay? Then if you find it, then you don't have any problem, I guess. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Then if you have any further issue, just email me. All right, I will check it out. Okay. Any other question, comment, concern? All right. Be safe. Zion, you have a problem?
Dr. Kang, I had a question.
Okay.
For the groups, do we all need to purchase our thing individually, or can we just use one person's account?
All right. No comment on it. I don't want to comment on it. Okay. So the company should strongly suggest every individuals have each account, but I'm not the seller of this company, so it's totally up to your ethical things, whatever. Okay, so I'm not in a position to make a comment on it. Okay, but I'm not gonna enforce who has an account or who has not account, something like that. Okay, my purpose is only your learning, so it's totally up to you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other question, comments, concern? All right. Then I will see you on Monday. You did a great job today. Okay. All right. See you on Monday. Bye.